Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes. To keep in touch with us, use our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which are all at Q and Review. That's CUEANDREVIEW. Or get in touch via information@qandreview.com. That's information@CUEANDREVIEW.com. Please like and share our podcast and give us any constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, March 22. Chris Hoy reckons combined UCI championships will be biggest cycling event ever seen. Report by Graham McPherson. Chris Hoy will not be going full circle. Inspired by the film E.T., it was a BMX that first got the future 6 times Olympic champion into cycling, channeling his inner Elliot on the streets of Edinburgh, before eventually graduating to mountain and then the track bikes that would bring him worldwide success and make him a household name. Announced as an ambassador for the first ever combined UCI World Championships to be held next year in Scotland, Hoy returned yesterday to the velodrome in Glasgow that bears his name, still as enthusiastic about cycling and the notion of bringing 13 different disciplines to the one place at the one time, something that did not happen when he was at the peak of his own personal powers. Said the 45-year-old, the only time the different disciplines usually mix would be the Olympics, and even then it's just mountain biking, BMX, track and road. You've also got the para-athletes all competing at the same time, and indoor cycling with all its different disciplines, which is quite a niche thing. I've seen little clips of it, and it almost looks like a different sport entirely on 2 wheels. But now they're going to feel part of this bigger cycling family. It's going to bring all the cycling communities together, so it's going to be such a big deal to win a world title next year. Of course, it's always important, but this will be the one you want to win, the first combined championships. Not only will it be the biggest cycling event ever seen, it is a unique opportunity to unite the global cycling family and to showcase the incredible breadth of our sport. Even in the spirit of arms across the cycling divide, Hoy draws the line at getting back on a BMX for old time's sake. He laughs, "You'll have more chance of seeing me back in a velodrome than you will on a BMX bike, that's for sure. I've got a few friends who did BMX back in the day and then got back into it. The trouble is, you have the memory of what you used to be able to do, and now you're about twice the weight. So when you fall off, you land heavily. There are a few broken bones among pals who thought it would be fun to get back into it." Hoy has been retired for 9 years now, transferring the obsessive pursuit of cycling greatness into an equally enthusiastic approach towards a number of other projects. He has successfully made the transition from 2 wheels to 4 and will be competing again this year in the Revolution A1 Sports Prototype Cup that starts in Zandvoort. He adds, "You're very aware of where you stand in the overall scheme of things, competing against true pros who have been driving since they were 5 or 6. But it's about me. You are competing with yourself. You're on track with other people, but it's about your own development, your own enjoyment, being in that moment. The feeling of being on the grid at the start, the adrenaline is incredible. I am a big believer in doing things that scare you a little bit. Whether it's scaring you literally, like being in a car racing around a track, or standing up on stage talking to a room full of people. When I first started doing public speaking, I was terrified. Being pushed out of your comfort zone and doing something that you're a little bit uncomfortable with, and then learning how to overcome that is quite a nice way to be. If you get too comfortable, if life is too steady, you can miss out on a lot. The importance of cherishing every single day came crashing home recently for Hoy, with the news that John Paul, a former cycling teammate and a junior world champion, had died at the age of 28. Says Hoy, I think when people die so young, it's so much more shocking because it feels like it goes against the natural order of life. For his family, for his parents, to have to bury their son. As a parent now, that makes it even more shocking. It always makes you think, right, I've got to make the most of every day. You don't know what your last day is going to be. John certainly gave it his all. He lived a very exciting life. He lived his passion and followed his dream. At least that's one thing, that he did what he loved. Report by Graham Macpherson. Evening Time Sport, March 22. Nick Roger says, Hemel Hempstead, the unlikely next stop on golf's new cash-soaked merry-go-round. Have you ever been to Hemel Hempstead? The reason I pose this largely humdrum question is because the opening event of the Saudi Super, what do you call it? It's actually the LIV Golf Invitational Series, is going to be held in that particular parish at the Centurion Club. On a first perusal, it is a fairly peculiar location for the money-soaked razzmatazz of golf's richest contest, isn't it? It's broadly equivalent to Elvis recreating one of his glitzy Las Vegas extravaganzas at the Club Tropicana in Cleethorpes. Anyway, you may be aware that Hemel Hempstead has a flummoxing circular road junction called the Magic Roundabout, which I once had to negotiate while almost choking on my own brain as I tried to fathom it out. It is basically a big roundabout with some other roundabouts inside it, and to get round about it, you've got to go round about a heck of a lot of roundabouts before you are inevitably driven round the bloomin' twist, or stopped by the police, or both. It was as perilous as attempting to burrow round the Arc de Triomphe on a mobility scooter during the Paris rush hour. In some ways, it is perhaps appropriate that the Saudi-backed Bean Feast is going to tee off in this neck of the woods. Like this flustered correspondent on that aforementioned magic thingamajig, we are still not quite sure what direction it's all going in, after all. Yes, we've now got a list of venues. We know there's jaw-dropping amounts of money on offer, and we've got the dates of the 8-stop tour. But we still haven't got any players. Well, the actual names of any players at least. Last week's news that this Greg Norman-driven Saudi bankrolled series was set to tee off in June took plenty of folk by surprise. The man known as the Great White Shark whipped all and sundry into a lather with an announcement that left the golf writers in a wide-eyed flapping frenzy that was akin to a panic-stricken Chief Brodie glimpsing the menacing fin of Jaws. The person offered for the curtain raiser, a cool £19 million or so, is double what will be on offer at July's 150th Open Championship in St Andrews. It's staggering stuff. Good old Hemel Hempstead may not be the home of golf, but there's money in them there roundabouts. Not so long ago, as the world's best players lined up in a choreographed show of loyalty to the PGA Tour, amid fevered talk of breakaways and insurgencies, the idea of some kind of rebel circuit was, according to Rory McIlroy, dead in the water. The relieved top brass of the established tours may have thought it was safe to go back in the water, but Norman continues to circle with considerable intent. It still all feels a bit scattergun though. The Asian Tour, for instance, have been given a major financial fillip to the tune of $100 million by Norman's LIV golf lot, and as part of that lucrative alliance, an event at the same Centurion Club was unveiled earlier this year. But that particular contest has suddenly disappeared from the Asian Tour's official schedule in the wake of Norman's grand unveiling of the LIV Golf Invitational Series last week. Reports from the Far East suggest the Asian Tour High Command was caught off guard by the former world number one's announcement, which adds to the making it up as we go along feel of the new series. Originally, Norman was trying to woo the world's best. Now it looks like he'd be happy with any Tom, Dick or Harry. Said Norman last week, "Just think how magnificent it would be if some kid who's a no-name comes and wins himself $3 million, $5 million, $8 million. Norman and his Saudi backers have so much money, they can probably afford to dish out millions to a Tom, a Dick or a Harry and play the waiting game. Let's face it, money talks, and if some fair to middling tour player is waltzing off with an astronomical sum of cash, then how long can the best in the business ignore the eye-watering riches on the table? First up, though, we need to know who will actually be playing in the inaugural event, and what will be the general reaction to those who sign up. Phil Mickelson, who had been working behind the scenes with the Saudis to gain commercial leverage against the PGA Tour, was ostracised by peers and sponsors amid the wreckage of a spectacular implosion when those revelations came to a head. It will be fascinating to see who puts their head above the parapet in the weeks to come. Golf is certainly in for an eventful summer. Now, what turn off do I take at the Ruddy roundabout? And another thing, talking of hefty sums, you just about need some of Norman's war chest to play some of the UK's most celebrated courses. Average green fees at courses generally ranked in the top 100 on these isles have risen by 8% for 2022, according to research by course rating enthusiast UK Golf Guy. A round on the old course at a peak time this season, for instance, will cost £270, up 38%. His findings show that the average price for a round at a course rated in the top 25 is £266. Get digging in those pockets, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, March 22. Postecoglou makes Celtic trophy admission. Report by Aidan Smith. Ange Postecoglou insists he was always prepared for the pressured environment at Celtic before stepping into the Parkhead hot seat. and the Australian gaffer also knew that he would have to become an instant success in his new role. Celtic have already landed the League Cup trophy this year and are currently 3 points ahead in the Premiership table. The Hoops also have a small matter of a Scottish Cup semi-final against Rangers, so a successful season could easily turn into an historic one in quick time. Speaking to former Australia goalkeeper Mark Swatzer on Optus Sport, Postecoglou said, "It's been everything I expected, I think. You don't go into a role like this kidding yourself about what you're taking on. I was under no illusion that I was taking over a massive football club with a massive following and massive expectations. But it was what was appealing to me. That's where I wanted to be. I couldn't do one of these AFL 5-year plans where I walk in and say, I'll build a team in the next 5 years. I knew that wouldn't cut it, and it shouldn't at a club like this. The reality of it is I had to come in this year and bring success to the football club. The football club can't go 2 years without some sort of silverware." Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, March 22. Stephen Davis provides Rangers contract update. Report by Aidan Smith. Stephen Davis insists he is fully focused on his own personal fitness instead of worrying about his contract future at Rangers. The veteran midfielder is out of contract in the summer and has not featured heavily for the Light Blues since Van Bronckhorst arrived in November. That has partly been down to injury, and the Northern Irishman has pledged to come back fitter and stronger for the run-in after the international break. Asked about his future, Davis said, "That's nothing unusual. I have been in a similar situation the last couple of years, and there's no sort of pressure from that side of things. Basically, the most important thing for me is to get back fit, and whenever I get in that rhythm, I have confidence in my ability and what I can still do on the pitch. That's all my focus is on at this moment in time. I have got to that stage of my career where I don't really look too far ahead, and I obviously need to see what happens in the summer with my career in general. My only focus at the minute is getting myself back fit and trying to get myself back into the team at Rangers for an important run-in. We'll see where everything sits after that." On his current fitness, Davis continued, "It's a huge month ahead. Whenever you're playing for a club the size of Rangers, and you get to this stage of the season, these are the games you want to be involved in. The later it goes, the more important each result carries. So we're remaining fully focused, and the boys are performing well, and we've still got a lot to achieve this season. Hopefully we can finish really strongly. I'm just back in training now with the group, and hopefully I can make that progress with my fitness when I meet up with the Northern Ireland squad. Hopefully I can get a bit of game time and get myself in a better place." He added on BBC Northern Ireland, "It's been difficult. Obviously after the winter break, I picked up an injury in the first training session back, which kept me out for a few weeks. And then I was back involved, and I kind of felt I was getting into a good place again and getting my rhythm again, but obviously then picked up another one." Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, March 23. Dave King makes Sydney Super Cup cash offer to Rangers board. Report by Chris Jack. Dave King has offered to cover the costs of Rangers withdrawing from the controversial Sydney Super Cup and given the under-fire Ibrox board a route out of the Australian trip. Supporters have staged a series of high-profile protests against the Light Blues hierarchy in recent weeks after it was confirmed the champions will head down under in November. The tournament will host the first ever Old Firm fixture to be staged outside of Glasgow and also includes A-League sides Western Sydney Wanderers and Sydney FC. Reports down under earlier this month cast doubt over the competition, but furious fans ramped up their show of dissent by interrupting the Premiership win over Dundee on 3 occasions by throwing streamers and tennis balls onto the pitch. The Aussie trip could be worth around £3 million to Rangers, and Times Sport understands former chairman King has now offered to cover the costs should the Ibrox board find a way to pull out of the Super Cup and attempt to save face with a disgruntled fan base. The move from King will increase pressure on Chairman Douglas Park and his directors and the executive team to withdraw from the competition now that the financial implication of doing could be covered by the man that replaced the chairman 2 years ago. James Bisgrove, the Rangers commercial director, attempted to justify the trip in a club TV interview last month as he highlighted the benefits to the bottom line of Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's side heading to Australia and taking on their Old Firm rivals. Bisgrove said, "To put some context around this, we have spoken before, and Stuart Robertson has spoken before, about the broadcasting and media values here in Scotland, and the club's view on that has been well documented. The participation in this event over 8 days will benefit the club to the same level as an entire season in the SPFL Premiership for 2 friendly games. So when we talk about wanting to maximise the commercial potential of this football club, we felt this was an opportunity that really helps us to achieve that ambition. We have spoken before about this season being one we can achieve a very high revenue target commercially. We have spoken about this at the AGM, around the £27.9 million, which is far higher than we have ever achieved before, and this is another step to allow us to maximise some of that potential as a club." Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, March 23. Former Ranger could join up with Owen Coyle at Queen's Park. Report by Ewan Payton. Owen Coyle is finally set to join Queen's Park as their new manager. The former Burnley and Bolton boss was reported to have been appointed by the Spiders last week. However, having now left Indian Super League outfit Jamshedpur, the former Ross County gaffer is clear to return to the Scottish game. And according to the Scottish Sun, the 55-year-old could be joined by a former Rangers player at the League One club. They report that Coyle would love to bring Greg Stewart with him to Queen's Park. The former Aberdeen and Kilmarnock star is expected to have multiple offers on the table though. Coyle's stock in management has recently risen, having led Jamshedpur to their first league title earlier this year. This allowed them to qualify for the Asian Champions League next season. The ISL club were hopeful Coyle would stay to guide them to that. However, Coyle has officially left, having returned home to Scotland. In a statement to the club's fans, Coyle said, "I have had 2 absolutely wonderful years with Jamshedpur. The people I met and the relationships we forged are among the best I have had in football. So it is with a heavy heart that I tell you I won't be continuing this journey, as I am returning home for family reasons. But if I return to India in the future, we have agreed that Jamshedpur will be my first choice to work if the club require my services at that time. I have a massive attachment to the club, and I consider it home. Even though we did not have the supporters in the stands, we could feel their love and passion towards the players. We tried our very best to give them a team to be proud of, a team that went on to become the champions of the Super League and the best team in the country. I want to thank the management, the staff, the players, and all the fans for their constant and unwavering support. I will miss you all. Coyle's contract in the ISL runs until May, but his representatives hope to negotiate a deal which will let him return to work before then. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 23. Scotland coach Naismith earmarks the key quality of Aaron Hickey. Report by Graham McGarry. Aaron Hickey can be the next golden boy off the Scotland production line, according to Stephen Naismith, with the national team assistant coach seeing the same composure in the Bologna youngster that fellow prospects Billy Gilmour and Nathan Patterson possess. Hickey has earned his first call-up to Steve Clarke's squad for the friendlies against Poland and either Austria or Wales, with Naismith believing his versatility can be a real asset to Scotland moving forward. But it is his calmness in possession that Naismith, who played alongside Hickey at Hearts, has earmarked as the quality that marks him out as a special talent. Said Naismith, he's got potential to go as far. He can achieve what he wants to achieve. Not being defined as left back is a massive attribute for him. I saw him play right back for Hearts, centre half for Hearts. He's played on the left for Hearts. And this is a guy who was in his first year as a professional in the first team. He embraced it. He didn't look out of place. He is comfortable on both feet, another thing that, for young players, is not seen a lot. And he's got that calmness. You see it in Nathan, and you see it in Billy, young players that have come in. They have a calmness when they've got the ball. In years gone by, young players might be a good defender or a good goal scorer, but they're missing that composure. What makes these guys different is if they've got that composure. He certainly goes into that category. Naismith hopes that perceptions of Hickey among the Scotland support are not coloured by his numerous refusals to accept call-ups to Scott Gemmell's under-21 squad in the past. He said, the longer he is around and the more people see him, they'll understand what he is like. He is a guy who just gets his head down and works really hard at his football. To look at his character from afar, for somebody so young to say, I'm going to take my career to Italy, and be over there with no family, no nothing, shows you the type of character that he is. He has been brought up well, he is very well mannered, and he understands and appreciates the opportunity that he got. That's the main thing. Over time, people will understand and see the type of character that he is. I've not got a doubt about that. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, March 23. Scotland ramp up Euro 2028 host bid. Report by Ewan Payton. The UK and Ireland has formally submitted their bid to host Euro 2028. Scotland has stepped up its efforts to co-host the tournament as part of the move. The SFA and fellow football governing bodies expressed their interest to UEFA following a study to work out how feasible the opportunity would be. The deadline for offers to host is today, Wednesday, March 23. If successful, it could mean that Scotland are granted automatic qualification to the Euros in 2028, along with England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Ireland. SFA Chief Executive Ian Maxwell said on the bid, "The confirmation of our joint expression of interest to host Euro 28, alongside our colleagues within the UK and Ireland FAs, represents our commitment to continuing the momentum of Scottish football and the Scotland national teams on the European, international and world stage. It is also an early milestone in our new strategic plan, The Power of Football, in aspiring to host major tournaments to showcase Scotland as a world-class football nation and venue, following the successful co-hosting of UEFA Euro 2020 at Hampden Park. We will now work with UEFA, our fellow national associations, UK and Scottish governments and local authorities to present an aspirational bid that will bring significant social and economic benefits to Scotland and to our national game. This, in turn, will help deliver on other ambitious objectives across the game and reinforce the power of Scottish football." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 23. Steve Clarke does not hold grudges. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Paul Dickov has predicted that Ryan Fraser can still play a key role in Scotland's bid to reach the Qatar 2022 finals, despite being left out of the squad for the friendlies against Poland and Austria or Wales this month. Fraser angered members of the Tartan Army when he was pictured taking part in a Newcastle United training session before the vital World Cup qualifier against Moldova back in November. The 22 times capped 28-year-old had withdrawn from the squad for the vital Group F double-header against Moldova and section winners Denmark due to a muscle injury. The winger, who has been in excellent form for Eddie Howe's side in the Premier League this year, has subsequently apologised to national team manager Steve Clarke for his actions. However, Clarke has omitted the Aberdeen-born player from his 25-man squad for the games against Poland at Hampden tomorrow evening and Austria or Wales away next Tuesday evening. Dickov, the former Arsenal, Manchester City, Leicester City, Blackburn Rovers and Scotland striker, is confident that Fraser will be back involved when the Qatar 2022 playoffs come around in June. He said at an OLBG media event, "I don't think they'll keep ignoring him. Steve Clarke is not a guy who holds grudges." Obviously, it was disappointing to see him pull out of the squad and then to be training, but there will be reasons for that. We don't know the full story. Those pictures might have been him being out there for 10 or 15 minutes in that session. He may not have been fit enough to play 90 minutes for Scotland, so there's a few different ways of looking at it. Knowing Steve as I do, he'll be watching Ryan Fraser and his form at Newcastle because he has been outstanding recently. If Steve feels it's right to bring him back into the squad, then he'll do it. If he doesn't feel it's right, then he won't. If it upsets the squad, then he won't do it. And that's the biggest thing in the squad right now, the harmony between the players. Dickov believes having so many players to ply their trade in the Premier League has been key to Scotland's resurgence under Clark, and is hopeful the national team can secure qualification to the World Cup finals for the first time since France '98 this summer. The former Oldham Athletic and Doncaster Rovers manager feels that scoring goals will not be an issue in the playoffs in June if Southampton striker Che Adams and Queen's Park Rangers forward Lyndon Dykes are fit and available for selection. He said, "The Premier League is the best league in the world, and to have the majority of your players playing there every week shows how good Scotland are. There's a lot of quality there. Che Adams, Stuart Armstrong, Super John McGinn. There's a lot of players playing at a high-pressure level every single week, and that's only helping the national team. I think we have seen that with the performances. It's taken a while to get there, but Steve Clarke has to take a huge amount of credit for the job he's done there. Scotland have not been the best to watch for a number of years, but you look at the squad now, and they're competing at a level to get the team to a World Cup. I do like the Che Adams-Lyndon Dykes partnership. I was delighted when Che Adams decided to play for Scotland, but being an old-school centre-forward, I like to see two up top. Che and Lyndon have a good partnership going. They both press from the front. They're super fit, and it works because Scotland need to play on the break at times. They've got the pace of Che, and Lyndon is a big boy who will hold the ball up and get himself into the box. It just works really well. If one comes short, then the other goes in behind, and they've got a great little link-up going on there. If Scotland are going to be successful in terms of getting to a World Cup, then Che Adams and Lyndon Dykes will be a massive part of that. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, March 24. Gareth Bale gives Rangers thumb up. Report by Stuart Wilson. Gareth Bale has revealed Aaron Ramsey is loving life at Rangers. The Welshman has been slow to get started at Ibrox, but has started 2 domestic games in a row, scoring a vital equaliser against Dundee on Sunday. And Bale, speaking ahead of their World Cup play-off against Austria, reckons his old pal is relishing the opportunity to get minutes on the pitch after a spell in the cold at Juventus. Bale said, "Aaron always keeps himself in good shape regardless, but he's obviously happy he's playing some more minutes than he was at Juventus, which is great news for us. He said he's enjoying it at Ibrox, and it's a big club. Enjoying your football is the most important thing, because if you're happy in what you're doing, you're going to play better. Hopefully he can put in a good performance in this game." Report by Stuart Wilson. Evening Times Sport, March 24. Celtic provide Ibrox tickets update ahead of crucial Rangers clash. Report by David Irvin. Celtic have confirmed they have received an allocation of tickets for the upcoming derby match against Rangers at Ibrox. Fans of both sides had been previously locked out of away matches in recent seasons, but Celtic will be backed by a small support at Ibrox next month. The club confirmed tickets, priced at £52, can be purchased online with priority to season ticket holders who were offered tickets for the match against Rangers in March 2020. The deadline to purchase is 2 p.m. on Monday 28th March. We reported on Monday that Celtic would be handed 700 tickets for the match on April 3. While 700 is a minuscule number in comparison to the away crowds this fixture used to permit, it is a breakthrough in the tensions between the clubs over away supporters. There have been no away fans at all in the previous two derby games this term. This was put down to COVID restriction-related issues. Prior to that, going back to 2018, Rangers slashed Celtic's huge allocation behind the goal, which was around 7,000 tickets, to around just 900 in the corner of Ibrox, which is the same amount every other team in the league are provided. Celtic therefore reacted by cutting Rangers' allocation to the same amount at Parkhead. Rangers CEO Stuart Robertson earlier this year revealed that there had been progress in talks about getting away supporters back at the huge derby fixtures. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, March 24. Jermaine Defoe confirms really tough decision to retire. Report by David Irvin. Jermaine Defoe has confirmed he has taken the really tough decision to retire from professional football just months after leaving Rangers. The veteran striker, aged 39, revealed in an Instagram post that he's decided to hang up his boots despite initially signing with Sunderland until the end of the season. Defoe, who enjoyed an illustrious 22-year career in football, was part of the Rangers side that claimed the Scottish Premiership title last season. He worked as a player, coach under Steven Gerrard at Ibrox, but decided to move on after heart-to-heart discussions with Giovanni van Bronckhorst earlier this year. Defoe's chances at Ibrox had been limited this season, but a hugely positive feeling remains between the striker, club and fans. The former England international went on to sign for Sunderland in February, but has now called time on his playing career as he looks forward to a next chapter after some quality time with friends and family. Announcing the decision, Defoe wrote on Instagram, "After 22 years in the game, I have decided to retire from professional football. It's been a really tough decision, and one I have discussed with my family and those closest to me. I made my professional debut at 17 years old in 1999, and I feel now is the right time to bow out. I have had an incredible journey and have met some amazing people in the game. Football will always remain in my blood, and it gives me great pride and satisfaction to look back on the blessed career that I've had. I now look forward to spending some quality time with my friends and family before moving forward on this next chapter in my career. Thank you to all the fans from each club I have played for. The love I have received and endured throughout my career will never be forgotten, and I will always have a special bond with you all. Thank you also to my amazing teammates, coaches and staff for playing such an integral part in my career. Lastly, I want to say thank you to my mum. You gave me a ball at 2 years old, and you made me believe my dream could happen. All that I am is because of you, and I owe everything to you and God." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, March 24. Koki Mizuna details huge Celtic moment which developed Japan connection. Report by David Irvin. Kyogi Furuhashi, Ryo Hatate, Daisen Maeda, and Yosuke Ideguchi's moves to Celtic has reinstated the huge Japanese interest in Parkhead. There has been a connection between the club and country since legend Shunsuke Nakamura's time at Parkhead, and the new Japanese heroes at Celtic have brought around heightened interest from their homeland in Scottish football. Ange Postecoglou's connection with Japan was obvious, having managed in the country before joining Celtic, and that only further adds to the developing connection between Celtic and Japan. Forgotten Celtic man Koki Mizuno was another player whose arrival at Celtic sparked keen interest from his home nation, especially as he lined up alongside Nakamura. And despite only scoring one goal during his 2-year stint in Glasgow, Mizuno has revealed his strike against Falkirk, assisted by Nakamura, was a huge moment in developing the link between Celtic and Japan. He told the Celtic View, "Celtic were on TV every week because Nakamura was always of interest. After I joined the club, Celtic got even more attention because there were two Japanese players together. Then when I scored against Falkirk, with Nakamura assisting me, it was huge. Now there are 4 Japanese players at the club, and the attention on Celtic here is more than in my day. Nakamura was big for me, as I wanted to follow his steps. I hope Furuhashi, Hatate, Maeda, and Ideguchi will be creating good steps for the next Japanese players who want to play for Celtic." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, March 24. Rangers winger Ryan Kent, not a top 10 EPL player. Report by Stuart Wilson. Gabby Agbonlahor has urged Steven Gerrard not to raid Ibrox for winger Ryan Kent in the summer. While the former Aston Villa striker does admit to liking Kent as a player, he is sure he is not in the bracket of star that can take his old team to the next level. And the pundit thinks Leeds would be a better fit for the former Liverpool man if he is to move south in the summer. He told Football Insider, "Ryan Kent, I do rate him as a quality player, but I look at it and what Premier League club would he go to? You are looking at the bottom half of the table for Ryan Kent. He's not a top 10 player. He's not someone Steven Gerrard would sign with the players that Aston Villa could choose out of in the world. Yes, he probably wants to test himself in the Premier League, but I'm not sure which club will suit him. Maybe Leeds. If Rafinha does go, then they can use a bit of that money and bring one in. I like him, but the Premier League is a different kettle of fish compared to the Scottish Premiership. It will be interesting to see what happens, but if he does go, I think it will be one of the lower teams in the Premier League. It is totally different style of football in terms of dominating games. Rangers will want to cash in if they can't agree a new contract." Report by Stuart Wilson. Evening Times Sport, March 24. Tonga international agrees move to Glasgow Warriors. Report by David Barnes. Glasgow have boosted their back row options for next season with the signing of Tongan international Sion Valanu from Worcester Warriors on a deal which will run for an undisclosed period of time. The 27-year-old, who stands 6 foot 1 inch and weighs 18.5 stone, is an explosive ball carrier who has scored 3 tries in 17 appearances for Worcester this season, with his most recent score a sensational effort from halfway against Bristol Bears last month when he bowled over 3 tacklers on his way to the line. Velanu said, "I had multiple opportunities for next season in different countries, but when the opportunity arose to join Glasgow, I didn't think twice about it. Glasgow has a rich tradition of success, and with Danny Wilson as head coach and the players that we currently have, I have no doubts that tradition will continue next season and beyond. I cannot wait to get started and meet our fans at Scotstoun." Velanu previously had spells playing for Saracens and Wasps. He will compete for game time in his favoured number 8 slot against Scotland international Matt Fagerson and Jack Dempsey, who has played internationally for Australia but can, if he chooses, switch to Scotland in October through World Rugby's controversial new player eligibility laws. Under the new rules, players who have already been capped can now change allegiance once they have completed a 3 years cooling off period, so long as they have a close and credible link via birthright to their new country. Dempsey last played for Australia in October 2019 and has a Scottish grandfather, but has been non-committal about the prospect of becoming a member of Gregor Townsend's squad during the lead-up to the 2023 World Cup. If he does opt in, then the demands on national squad members over the next 18 months means that Wilson will need a third frontline number 8. Warriors head coach Danny Wilson said, "We are really pleased to secure Sion's signature ahead of next season. He's a really powerful carrier who can give us real go forward with ball in hand. We have been looking to add to our options in the back row, and he adds to the talent that we already have in that area. So it's another step forward in building depth in our squad. His recent form has been excellent for Worcester, including winning man of the match against Wasps, and we look forward to welcoming him to Scotstoun this summer." Report by David Barnes. Evening Times Sport, March 25. Gareth Bale to Rangers transfer odds emerge. Report by Aidan Smith. Bookies have revealed their odds on Gareth Bale joining Rangers after the Welsh superstar gave the Ibrox club a thumbs up yesterday. The Real Madrid winger hailed Aaron Ramsey and detailed how the midfielder was loving life in Glasgow. Bale name-checked Rangers as a big club, as he detailed how Ramsey had returned to full fitness after a tough spell at Juventus. Now Odds Bible have revealed Bale's next club odds and constant speculation that he will be leaving Real Madrid. Rangers are priced at 12-1, with Tottenham favourites at 2-1. Cardiff City are 8-1, while Newcastle are also in the running at 10-1. Celtic are also quoted at 20-1. Bale praised his teammates for digging deep to overcome Austria in their World Cup playoff, but hit out at disgusting coverage of his own situation in the Spanish media in the build-up. Bale produced 2 terrific strikes, one in each half of the semi-final, as Wales won 2-1 to move within 1 game of ending their 64-year wait to play at a World Cup. Wales have played at the last 2 European Championships, but not at a World Cup since reaching the quarter-finals in Sweden in 1958. "It was a massive game," Bale said, after Wales had set up a playoff final date with either Scotland or Ukraine. We knew coming into it, we spoke about how big the game is, and we have to perform. We knew we would have to dig deep to look into our experience in big games. It's a perfect scenario. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, March 25. Celtic striker Johnny Kenny stretchered off with serious knee injury on international duty. Report by Aidan Smith. Celtic striker Johnny Kenny was forced off with a serious knee injury on international duty with the Republic of Ireland under-19s. The youngster was involved in a bad collision with Brentford's goalkeeper Matthew Cox, and as a result he left the field on a stretcher. Ireland were taking on England in a UEFA European Under-19 Championship qualifying elite round match in Walsall. Kenny has just recently returned from injury, so the knock will be a major setback for the Hoops youngster, who is yet to feature for the first team. The Irishman moved to Parkhead from the Premier Division in Ireland, where he had grabbed 11 goals for Sligo Rovers. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, March 25. Steve Clarke claims VAR would have overturned controversial Poland penalty. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Scotland manager Steve Clarke claimed his team had been denied a 7th consecutive victory against Poland at Hampden by a controversial injury time penalty decision that VAR would have overturned. The national team had been on the verge of another win in the friendly international thanks to a Kieran Tierney goal, his first for his country, in the second half. But substitute Piatek dived in the opposition area in the 4th minute of added on time and was awarded a spot kick by Robert Hennessy, the referee, which he then converted. It was a painful end to the night for John McGinn, who donned the captain's armband in the absence of Andy Robertson and his teammates. Said Clarke afterwards, "I think it is a penalty decision for a friendly game. That is probably the best way to leave it." Asked by Sky Sports if VAR would have overturned the decision, Clarke said, "I would think so. It was very soft." And talking of soft penalties, John McGinn could have got one in the second half, and at that stage it would have been game over. Obviously we want to win, want to continue the winning run. 7 wins sounds better than 6 wins and a draw. We deserved a clean sheet. Everyone could see what it meant to the players afterwards on the pitch. They wouldn't let it go. Of course they are disappointed, because they want to win. They are out there representing their country, and they're on a good run. They wanted to create another little bit of history with 7 wins in a row, which would have been fantastic. But we have another game on Tuesday night in Vienna now, and we want to go there and get back on the winning run again. Tonight they're disappointed not to win that game, because we felt they did enough. We felt we deserved to win the game, but we move on. Yes, it is a disappointment, but it is not the end of the world for us. We can continue our unbeaten run against Austria in Vienna on Tuesday night. Scotland had performed well against opponents who are 12 places above them in the FIFA World Rankings and deserved to record a morale-boosting triumph. Still, Scotland can travel to play Austria, who were beaten 2-1 by Wales in their Qatar 2022 playoff semi-final in Cardiff, in Vienna on Tuesday with confidence. Clarke admitted he was satisfied with how Scotland performed throughout the friendly and was especially pleased that they scored their goal at a free kick. He said, "I thought we were good. Obviously, after such a long break, I thought the players were at it again. They worked on all the things we talk about all the time. The continuity. The shape was good. I thought the team played well. The possession was good. And we created some good chances, especially in the first half. Maybe not so many in the second half, but we got the goal off a good set play. It was one of the reasons I went with the starting 11 I did. It was close to starting 11 that played against Denmark in November. All those boys know their jobs. The good thing is we have been pretty consistent over the last year in terms of how we play, how we want to play, the shape of the team, the way we want to move the ball. And I saw a lot of these things tonight. Set pieces are very important. It is a massive part of the game. It is a part of the game that I felt we could improve on. And that's why I brought Austin in. And we are improving. We scored our goal off a set play. And we defended set plays very well against a team that had a height advantage on us. We defended them very well. There was only one big chance they got off a set play in the first half. Third phase off a corner, and the boy had a free header. Apart from that, we dealt very well with it. Clark admitted he will make changes for the friendly with Austria in Vienna. He said, "There are one or two things I still want to look at and still want to work on. There will be some changes to the starting lineup. We want to keep the unbeaten run going. It's two friendlies, and a lot of players have a heavy workload with their clubs, and I will try to be as fair as I can." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, March 24. Billy Gilmour and Nathan Patterson, the leading lights in Scotland's bright-looking future. Report by Graham McGarry. It was a game that Scotland wished they didn't have to play, but if they had to, they were as well doing it right. It was a friendly, sure, but in name only. By far the most important aspect of the night, of course, was the money raised by the bumper crowd in aid of UNICEF's work in Ukraine. With that nation's absence from the stadium where they should have been duking it out on the field for a place in the World Cup playoff final, lending a poignancy to the occasion. But it was also a chance for Scotland to not only show their support for such a worthy cause, but also to show that the good feeling that had this stadium bouncing back in November had not dissipated in the 4 months since, and there was momentum to maintain. From the strength of Steve Clarke's starting lineup to the pumped-up support from both nations, the niggle in the challenges to the swaggering intent from the Scots right from the off, this had the feeling of a competitive affair. Nobody in dark blue epitomised the zest, energy and commitment that is now flowing through the Scotland side more than Nathan Patterson and Billy Gilmour, who may not have had their troubles to seek at club level this season, but who surely cannot doubt how highly they are valued by their country. The young player are worth their weight in gold to Clarke and their team, and are priceless to the swooning Tartan army. Right from the start, it was they who caught the eye. Patterson was all thrust and energy down the right. Gilmour a buzz bomb of activity off the ball in the midfield, but exuding a zen-like presence when it was at his feet. Patterson signalled the intent of the Scots right away, almost bringing the house down with an early barnstorming charge from his wing-back station. The 20-year-old slalomed past 3 challenges, getting into the area before his left foot just let him down at the last moment, scuffing his shot a little to allow the impressive and busy Łukasz Skorupski to save in the Polish goal. Patterson is going through a difficult time of it at Everton since he made the move from Rangers in January, managing just 45 minutes so far before being hooked in a FA Cup game against Boreham Wood. Barely trusted by Frank Lampard to get on the might of the 7th place team in the English National League, he was a standout against one of the top 30 teams in international football. On this evidence, Seamus Coleman and John Joe Kenny, who struggled on loan at Celtic last season, must be in some form. He might have done better when in a good position once more, mind you, as he seized upon a mistake in the Poland midfield and surged forward. But his right foot effort this time was too central, and Skorupski was equal to it again. How he and then a host of other Scots did not break the deadlock moments later is anyone's guess, though Skorupski at least had a fair bit to do with it. A cross was headed out to Patterson to meet on the half volley. This time his connection was true, and the Polish keeper could only palm to the edge of the area. Gilmour was first on the scene, as he was so often, and Skorupski produced a fantastic diving save to keep the ball from flying into his bottom right-hand corner. Even then the ball ricocheted around the area with heroic blocks from the Polish defence, the only thing denying John McGinn from bundling home. Gilmour showed that there is more to him than just his impressive passing range when he bullied Krychowiak off the ball in midfield, burst into the number 10 position, and produced an incisive reverse pass to put McGinn in on goal. The captain for the night skipped round Skorupski with the keeper's outstretched fingertips grazing his foot to knock him off balance. Had he gone down, he would surely have got the penalty, but his honesty cost him, and he was unable to reach the ball to turn home. Evening Times Sport, March 25. McCoist makes case for Aaron Ramsey to start against Celtic. Report by Aidan Smith. Ali McCoist believes Giovanni Van Bronckhorst could play his wild card and start Aaron Ramsey against Celtic after the international break. The Welsh international has struggled to find his fitness since arriving at Ibrox in the January window from Juventus on loan. But after playing a full 90 minutes against Dundee at the weekend and featuring for Wales against Austria last night, McCoist reckons this could be Ramsey's time to shine. He told Sky Sports, "He is class, isn't he? He is a wonderful football player. He has, as we all know, it has been well documented, he has struggled a little bit with injuries to keep himself 100% fit. It has been a great shame, as we all want to see great players on the pitch. He is certainly that. He will have got a real bonus from scoring his first goal up in Dundee. I believe he may have played the entire game last night for Wales. That is really positive in terms of his fitness. I'm hopeful he can get his feet up, have a rest, and get himself ready for this Old Firm game. I would love to see Aaron Ramsey play in that one, that's for sure." Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, March 25. Alfredo Morelos in injury muscle overload concern. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers star Alfredo Morelos is facing muscle overload, according to a report. Media in Colombia say that the striker will play no part in the country's World Cup qualifier against Bolivia due to the injury concern. Journalist Pepe Sierra claims that the Rangers star will miss the match, and that is almost certainly going to be a worry for Giovanni van Bronckhorst. He wrote on Twitter, "Morelos will not be taken into account today in the Colombian national team by Reinaldo Rueda to face Bolivia. The Rangers striker has muscle overload." Colombia must win the match against Bolivia to keep their World Cup hopes later this year alive. But as stated, Morelos will play no part as he rests and recovers. With the Old Firm derby just around the corner on April 3, everyone connected to Rangers will be crossing their fingers that he is not ruled out for it. He missed the last match against Celtic back in February due to being away on international duty. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 25. Nathan Patterson thrilled to be back playing for Scotland. Report by Darren Johnston. Nathan Patterson admits he was thrilled to be back playing football after impressing in Scotland's draw with Poland. The right wing-back has only managed 45 minutes of action for Everton since making the £12 million switch from Rangers in January. But Patterson did not show any signs of ring rust as he produced an eye-catching display, which included going close to scoring what would have been a stunning solo effort in Thursday's 1-1 stalemate. Kieran Tierney gave Scotland the lead before Piatek notched a controversial penalty with literally the last kick of the game. Patterson said, "I am really enjoying being back with the squad. It's what I want to do. I want to play football, so being back out there from the start was a great experience again, and being in front of the home fans is great. I thought the team played really well. There were a lot of key moments in the game. I had a lot of chances myself, but didn't put them in the back of the net. We went 1-0 up. It might not have been a penalty at the end, but it was given, and it's a decent result in the end. It was a great turnout from the fans, a good atmosphere, and I was buzzing with that." Scotland will now head to Vienna for another friendly on Tuesday after the Austrians lost to Wales in a World Cup semi-final play-off last night. Should Scotland see off Ukraine in June's rearranged play-off clash, they will then take on Wales for a place at the finals in Qatar. Patterson added, "That will be a good game against Austria, another top side. It's away from home, but we've beaten them away from home before, so I don't see why we can't do it again." Report by Darren Johnston. Evening Times Sport, March 25. Kieran Tierney lifts lid on referee exchange after Poland penalty award. Report by Ewan Payton. Scotland star Kieran Tierney has revealed that the referee had no answer for him when he quizzed who had been penalised at the death for Steve Clarke's side as Poland scored from the spot. Piatek went down under the challenge of Craig Gordon in the dying minutes of Scotland's friendly match with Poland at Hampden. Replay showed that the player has leaped over the Hearts keeper's legs and hit the deck despite not being touched. Robert Hennessy pointed to the spot though, as the officials bought the act of simulation. Piatek converted from 12 yards to cancel out Tierney's first goal for the Scots, and Tierney says there was no clear indication from the referee as to why the penalty had been incorrectly awarded. Speaking to Sky Sports, Tierney said, "The penalty at the end was not a great way to finish the game. I was asking, who was it? Was it Craig or Grant? And I don't think he knew. He never said anything. I never saw it. From my eyes it looked like nothing. But that minimal contact is why I was asking. But I never got an answer. I know it's a friendly, but this could have been a competitive game easily enough. And you want to see games like that out when you're winning by 1 goal against a team that's higher seeded. So we're obviously gutted to lose the goal and the clean sheet. Tierney scored his first goal for Scotland in the match as he diverted a superb John McGinn cross into the net with his head. He continued, I didn't even know if there was VAR, so for a minute I was thinking, is this onside or offside? But it's obviously good to get a first goal. That's me got 1 goal and 1 own goal for Scotland, so that's me even. It was just a shock. When do I score a header? So obviously I was buzzing. Great ball in by John McGinn. And the set-piece coach Austin McPhee works a lot on that. The manager said, if I don't score this game or the next game, I'm going back off the park. So luckily, I got it. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 28. The Monday kick-off. Stats show Celtic are real winners in Rangers away allocation decision. Report by James Morgan. England should give up their World Cup spot for Ukraine. Friday brings the draw for the Qatar World Cup, and with it a number of imponderables. It will be the first finals in which some of the participants will not be known, including Scotland, of course, with the war in Ukraine, COVID-19, and the unresolved qualification campaigns, all providing explanations for why the identities of all 32 teams will remain incomplete. It will throw up further incongruities, such as the placing of Portugal in Pot 1, should they successfully navigate their way past North Macedonia in the Path C playoff match tomorrow evening. FIFA made the announcement last week that seeds would be determined based on world rankings, but there seems something inherently unfair in placing teams that finish second in their group and come through a playoff taking up a number 1 seeding place when others such as Germany, Denmark, Netherlands and Mexico actually won theirs. Then there is Ukraine. Boris Johnson had a novel solution to the problem when he suggested that the war-torn country should just be handed the berth that 2 countries under his UK government are vying for. It was a theme picked up by at least one English journalist last week when he argued that either Wales or Scotland should merely step aside and hand Ukraine their qualification spot. Perhaps should they draw England in Qatar, then Gareth Southgate will do the honourable thing and gift Ukraine the points. Better still, let's just hand them the trophy now. Such daftness prompted a petition launched by a few wags who countered with the suggestion that England, an enclave for Russian funny money after all, should hand over their place instead, since Wales' last World Cup appearance came in 1958 and Scotland's in 1998, while England tend to qualify every year. Hard to imagine the Football Association, which has a turnover of £500 million each year, willingly foregoing the £10 million prize money of reaching the World Cup, much like the Scottish Football Association or the Football Association of Wales then. Murray for president. Speaking of the imbecilic Johnson, how long is it before we can rid him from the House of Commons again? 2 years. Ugh. Perhaps Andy Murray will continue to hone his sharp political put-downs in time for Johnson's surely inevitable denouement. Politics and sport don't mix. Johnson likes to tell us, of course, except when they do. Sebastian Coe was a Tory minister for many years. Alec Douglas-Hume, the ill-fated Conservative Prime Minister, was a first-class cricketer, while Chris Chataway, another long-distance runner, was yet another Tory minister, and well, frankly, the list of such is endless. So what chance, our Andy? Well, like one of his trademark forehands down the line, he certainly did not miss when it came to commenting on a tweet quoting Rishi Sunak as he addressed the Commons during Tuesday's budget, in which he suggested that only the Conservatives can be trusted with public money, to which Murray replied, laugh out loud. Didn't the Conservative Prime Minister spend tens of thousands of taxpayer money on gold wallpaper that keeps falling down? Trajkovsky, the Macedonian phrase for déjà vu. Do Italians have a phrase for déjà vu? That was the overwhelming question when the Azzurri's second successive failure to reach the World Cup finals materialised last week. But it wasn't the only matter fans were rubbing their eyes at. Sports scientists say that visualisation and repetition are clear techniques that can improve the performance of a player, and there was no better representation of that theory than when Alejandro Trajkovsky lashed in North Macedonia's winner against Italy on Thursday evening. Trajkovsky clearly felt right at home in Palermo's La Favorita Stadium. He had, after all, spent 4 years as a midfielder with the Sicilian club, where he played 104 times and scored 16 goals. 3 of those strikes began circulating on social media in the hours after North Macedonia's stunning victory, and each bore an uncanny resemblance to the one that Trajkovsky scalped past Donnarumma to end Italy's hopes of qualification for Qatar. Italy out in the football, but let's keep them in the rugby. It's been a week of condescending head-patting for the Italian rugby team in the aftermath of their Six Nations victory over Wales last weekend. As noted in last Monday's column, the Azzurri managed something Scotland could not and have hopefully shelved talk of banishing them from the competition. The fear is that money will talk, of course, and the greatest test in Northern Hemisphere rugby will soon be bastardised to include an interloper in the form of South Africa, all with the intention of lining the pockets of the home unions. But there should be less haste and less speed to replace Italy. Listen to Paolo Garbisi, the man who kicked the winning conversion after Edoardo Padovani's mesmeric try, who said at the weekend, "It's really important that we consider this a point of departure rather than a point of arrival. Quite honestly, I don't want to be winning one game every 7 years. I want to win lots of games with Italy, as many as possible." With such conviction, it would be grossly unfair to jettison Italy from the tournament. Consider too that Italy's under-20s, for whom Garbisi's brother Alessandro plays, finished their Six Nations campaign with 3 victories. Yes, and of course, one of those included a thumping 27-13 win over Scotland. Celtic will benefit most from return of fans. It's Rangers versus Celtic this week, and that can mean only one thing: endless discussions about whether the old firm is dead or not. Rather than become embroiled in the debate, though, the Monday kick-off is going to focus instead on the importance of home advantage. It is the first time Celtic supporters will be allowed into Ibrox since 2019, albeit there will be a mere 700 in attendance, with preference given to supporters who missed out on the COVID-cancelled Premiership fixture in March 2020. Rangers cited at the time of their decision to make allocation cuts in 2018 that it was to meet season ticket holder demand for the fixture, but the suspicion has always been that the Ibrox side implemented the policy in order to give themselves a competitive advantage after a run of 5 successive home defeats by Celtic in the fixture. It has diminished the spectacle as a result, not least since most of the appeal for the match is the unique atmosphere that it throws up due to the presence of both sets of supporters being in attendance. COVID has played its part in a lack of Celtic and Rangers fans at the homes of their respective rivals, but the decision has certainly had an impact on results too, with it favouring Rangers more than Celtic. The latter have won just once at Ibrox since the introduction of the cap on tickets. 79. The record points tally accrued by Peterhead in winning the League Two title in 2018-19. Kelty Hearts, who won the division on Saturday, need just 8 points to break the record, however, even if the Fifers were to win all 5 of their remaining matches. They would still fall short of the 4th tier record of 98 set by Gretna in 2004-2005. Report by James Morgan. Evening Times Sport, March 28. St Mirren keeper Jack Allenwick a target for Hibs and Aberdeen. Report by Ewan Payton. St Mirren goalkeeper Jack Allenwick is a pre-contract target for Hibs, according to a report. It is said that Sean Maloney is ready to join the fight with Aberdeen for the Buddies number 1. The Englishman is out of contract during the summer. Naturally, this means that a number of clubs are interested in signing the former Rangers backup after a number of impressive performances in a Saints shirt. He has turned down a new deal with the Paisley outfit, and the Daily Record report that Hibs and Aberdeen are now battling it out to agree pre-contract terms with Allenwick. He also has options south of the border. Allenwick, of course, worked with Aberdeen boss Jim Goodwin at St Mirren, with the Irishman the manager who signed him almost 2 years ago. Report by Ewan Payton.
And that was this week's Glasgow Times Sport podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes with the publisher's kind permission. Thanks for listening.